The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Ralph Waldo Emerson. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and the community. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. Wow. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Jan or Mary as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. So let's sing the opening hymn, Oh, the Beauty in a Life, number 182.
Oh, the beauty of a life that illumines honor anew, that models wise and gracious ways to every seeker, that every day shall serve in joy and do the right. Oh, praise the life whose beauty shows our justice true. Let not service of the good be confined to great saints alone, but every hour be part of our daily living. Set not the whole of wisdom's grace beyond their ken. How wide the path, how close the goal which love has shown. Oh, the beauty of a life that illumines care of the soul, that knows a love that is for self as well as others, that every day embodies praise for every good. This is the faith to which we turn our faith and goal.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation, inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak in our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the first principle. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Reverence and respect for human nature is at the core of the Unitarian Universalist faith. We believe that all the dimensions of our being carry the potential to do good. We celebrate the gifts of being human, our intelligence and capacity for observation and reason, our senses and ability to appreciate beauty, our creativity, our feelings and emotions. We cherish our bodies as well as our souls. We can use our gifts to offer love, to work for justice, to heal injury, to create pleasure for ourselves and others. My name is Randy Schwalbe, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors, if you're out there. And we're glad you've joined us this morning under these challenging circumstances. If you're not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. And remember, if you wish to see this or any of our past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider becoming a member of our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a board member if you are interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. Let us now sing the affirmation.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help, and to help, and to help one another.
Thank you, Jan. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand by clicking on the raised hand button near the lower right of your participant's window. When Andy calls your name, click the unmute me button near the lower left of the participant's window and then speak. And I'll go first. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., we are having our monthly worship committee meeting. It's the July meeting, was delayed a little bit. So that's tomorrow at 5 p.m. On Zoom. Okay, and so all the worship committee members, please be there.
Anyone else? I'd like to announce a reminder that when you make your donations and pledges online, if you use the online service, there is a 2.9% fee, and we would appreciate if you would pay that fee. If you don't elect to pay it, it will be deducted from your donation or pledge, and that's fine, but you just need to be aware of that. And this is the last time I will make this announcement. Thank you.
Treva, you have an announcement. Please unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, so two really short, quick announcements. The next bylaws meeting is this Tuesday at 6 p.m. when we will continue with our discussion of, I believe it's Article 10. And then also, my board members, I would really like to ask you to stay after the service for a very quick emergency board meeting dealing with our internet service. So please stay around. There will not be a Q&A today, so it will happen right after the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Treva. Anita, you have your hand raised. Please unmute yourself and make your announcement.
Okay. It's already unmuted.
Good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I have to reverse an announcement. Last Sunday, Chris Fox announced that the person called Freddie, Jane Eddy's companion, has passed away. And so I called Jane last week, and she told me, no, he's still alive. So that's what I wanted to announce.
Okay, thank you, Anita. You can mute yourself. Diane DeMarco, please unmute yourself and make your announcement.
Hi, yeah, I wanted to announce that I had a few signs left For anybody who wanted to make a donation to the church, I can come and bring them to you. And quickly they say, in this house, we believe Black Lives Matter, women's rights are human rights, no human is illegal, science is real, water is life, in religious freedom, love is love, and kindness is everyone. So let me know if you'd like one of those signs. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Lou, I see your hand is raised. Please unmute yourself and make your announcement.
Yeah, I have a bad connection or bad internet, so I don't know if you'll hear it all, but we have men's group meeting tomorrow, as usual, at 10, and Andy, you need to send out a link to that.
I will do that following the Sunday service. Thank you, Lou. Mary Ann, I see you have your hand raised. Would you like to make an announcement? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is having to do with Diane's poster that I put up in front of my Airbnb. I just want to let you know that the first person that came to the Airbnb was a person of color, and she wrote that she never felt more at home when she saw that sign. So let me tell you, within one day, it made a difference in somebody's life. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you for that announcement, Mary Ann. I'll just add that I still have a few Black Lives Matter t-shirts that I'm willing to gift to anyone who's willing to wear one. I have medium, large, and extra large. So please contact me if you'd like to have and wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt to share the message with the world. That's the last announcement I see. Randy, back to you.
Okay, next week we continue our summer Sermons by Other People series. Jan Callner will read Adagio for Life, written by Dr. Karl Palnick. We take this time to celebrate all those who are having a birthday this month. Birthdays are a special moment. It is a time in which you feel as if the world is taking a moment to invite you into being just like it was on your first birthday. If you have a birthday this month, please raise your blue hand. When Andy calls your name, unmute yourself and please tell us your special date.
Waiting for any August birthdays. While we're waiting, I'll just throw in that my mother-in-law, Nisha, turned 90 yesterday. And my daughter, Hannah, who's expecting a baby any moment, turns 29 today.
Wow. Busy birthday weekend in your family.
Anybody else want to raise up? Margaret's waving her hand. Margaret, unmute yourself. Maybe you have a birthday to share. I'll unmute you. Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay. If I live until next Monday, I will be 88.
Happy birthday, Margaret. And please do. Anybody else? I'm scrolling through to see if anybody else has their hand raised because I don't see any blue hands. Okay, maybe not. Randy, that's it on the birthdays.
Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as part of your personal life. The collective flames of these candles also embody all the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are also deeply felt in this community. Today's reading is from listverse.com. Although many stories have emerged of individuals sacrificing their lives for others, there are very few in the history books about whole villages selflessly risking their own lives. Yet this is exactly what happened when the village of Eyam in Derbyshire, England, was subjected to the bubonic plague. The disease was carried into the village on a bale of damp cloth. It carried fleas from London, which itself was struggling with the Black Death. 42 villagers passed away from the pestilence, which made its way across the small community between September and December 1665. Unsurprisingly, many people wanted to flee the village by spring 1666. However, to prevent the Black Death from traveling to nearby towns, such as Bakewell and Sheffield, William Mompesson, the new rector, attempted to convince the locals to remain in the village to quarantine the plague. The villagers agreed to this request and remained in Iam. In little more than a year, 260 people passed away from the plague to ensure that their neighbors didn't suffer the same fate. Let us join in a time of meditation, of prayer, and of silence. Let us seek the quiet and the calm, laying aside our struggles. And in the silence, may there be a reverence in our hearts, a thankfulness within our spirit, and a deepened understanding of the meaning of our lives. Let us enter into the stillness. Please come back now. And now, Mary Schwalbe will sing If I Can Stop One Heart from Breaking, based on a poem by Emily Dickinson and set to music by Shane Dittmar.
Thank you. So in preparing for this service, Susan had sent a list of hymns, suggested hymns for the service, and one of them was the words to this Emily Dickinson poem. Unfortunately, as is the case with some of the other hymns in our hymnal, the melody wasn't really very singable. So I thought, because it's Emily Dickinson, I would go online to see if I could find a better music setting for it, and I found a choral arrangement, a SATB, and I bought it, and Jan Collner and I were planning to sing it today as a duet, but it's really not safe for us to do that yet. So Jan put a piano track on, and I'm going to sing with it today. But we do have the music, so when we can all get back together and sing together as a choir, I look forward to us learning this together and singing together in the future. So let's go.
Thank you, Mary. That's beautiful. Today we begin our summer sermons by other people series. During the month of August, members of our community will read sermons written and published by notable clergy and laity. Sermons that each of the readers has found a deep connection. Susan Landau will read a sermon titled, May Your Pillow Catch Fire, by Reverend Scott W. Alexander. Susan?
So I want to say that there's a full moon in Aquarius on Monday, and I think that's what's causing
Oh, okay.
some of these problems. So this sermon was written by the Reverend Scott Alexander, and as of 2010, he has been a minister at the UU Fellowship of Vero Beach Incorporated in Vero Beach, Florida. He attended Star King School for the Ministry in 1974 and was ordained in 1975. Since that time, he has served as minister for UU churches in Halton, Maine, Fanwood, New Jersey, and 2 locations in Boston, Massachusetts, and 2 locations in Bethesda, Maryland. Due to time constraints and the length of this sermon, I have edited some portions of it. If you would like to read the entire sermon, it can be found on the uua.org website. Be aware that the sermon I am presenting was written in 2015, so bear in mind that current references are from 5 years ago. It is entitled, May Your Pillow Catch Fire. It was still dark that morning in 1942 when the Gestapo rousted from bed the Jews of Babova, a Polish village. In the confusion, 12-year-old Samuel Oliner slipped away and hid on a roof, still in his pajamas. The next afternoon, when he dared to look around, the ghetto was silent. The Jews of Babova, murdered that day, were lying in a mass grave in the nearby countryside. Samuel found some clothes in an empty house, and skirting German patrols and Polish looters, fled to the country. There, after walking for 2 days, he found his way to the farmhouse of Bałwina Peacock, a peasant woman who had been friendly with the family. Mrs. Peacock knew when Samuel knocked at the door that she would be shot if the Germans found her harboring a Jew. Without hesitation, she took Samuel in. Bałwina taught Samuel the rituals of Polish Catholic life, how to go to confession, how to pray, and the catechism. With her help, Samuel posed as an impoverished Polish stable boy in search of work and a place to live. Thus it was that Samuel Oliner survived the war. It is with this moving story that a recent New York Times article on what makes for human goodness began. Clearly, it was Mrs. Peacock's uncommon and courageous goodness which snatched this young Jewish boy from certain death. By some estimates, as many as 200,000 Jews, like Samuel Oliner, were saved from Nazi butchers by good-hearted non-Jewish rescuers. I want to point out that's a pretty big number, 200,000. Now, a group of social scientists is reaching, as they put it, into the cauldron of good and evil that was World War II, to study those exemplars of human goodness, to see if there are any common identifiable characteristics among those brave and beautiful people who altruistically risked everything to save others. The director of this project, you might be interested to know, is an eminent sociologist from Humboldt State University in California, a man by the name of Samuel Oliner. We want to find the common threads among the few who helped, Oliner writes. We want to know the differences between the rescuers and those others who might have helped, but chose to look the other way. He and his research team already have interviewed 140 of what another author has called the righteous Gentiles, and are racing against the clock to reach more of these good souls before they die of old age all over Europe. But Dr. Oliner's project on the sources of human compassion and altruism has been able to establish some preliminary conclusions about the characters of those who selflessly helped. What the sociologists generally found is that most of those who bravely hid Jews from Hitler's final solution share two personal characteristics. First, these were people with a strong sense of personal self-worth. And secondly, they all had a clear set of compassionate human values learned in childhood. Now let's take each of these two foundations for human goodness in turn and see what they might have to teach us. First, I think it would not surprise us that these rescuers of humanity share a strong sense of personal worth and security. For doesn't it make perfect psychological sense that, generally speaking, one has to feel good about one's own self before one is able to express much goodness towards others? This, of course, is not a new idea. For well over 2,000 years, Jesus framed his enduring gospel of human responsibility and goodness in this way: love your neighbor as you love yourself. Even in his primitive pre-psychological age, Jesus seems to have intuitively understood that love and respect for the self is a spiritual prerequisite for love and respect directed toward others. In our time, it has been humanistic psychologists, most noticeably Abraham Maslow and Erich Fromm, who have asserted that self-esteem and personal security are the starting place for all healthy and humane human relations and societies. And this makes such perfect practical sense, doesn't it? For how, I ask, can I be respectful and loving and nurturing toward the humanity around me if I despise and loathe the humanness within me? If I don't respect and revere the manifestation of personhood I know best, namely my own self, in this familiar little sheath of skin, how in God's name will I respect and revere those often odd, idiosyncratic human manifestations that all of you are? Clearly, love and respect for self creates the core of human affection, of human affirmation from which love and respect for others spring. It would not surprise us then to hear that those compassionate few who saved Jews from certain death valued themselves. From the inside out, they knew of their own human beauty and worth, and therefore could readily see and want to protect the human beauty and worth of strangers when the knock came at the door. And isn't the opposite also true? When we are unkind or indifferent to human beings around us, doesn't our unseemly behavior most often have its basis in our own self-negation? Let me be the first to crawl into the confession booth this morning. Whenever I catch myself expressing inappropriate anger, mean-spiritedness, or cruel indifference towards other individuals or groups, I invariably discover that my lack of compassion says more about the ways in which I don't feel good about myself, rather than anything objectively objectionable about those to whom my venom is directed. When I unnecessarily hurt, abuse, or neglect someone else, it arises from some hurt, abused, or neglected part of me. My lack of goodness is invariably a reflection of my own pain and inadequacy as a person, rather than caused by anything wrong with those to whom my toxicity is directed. And this truth leads me to the next point the sociologists studying the sources of human goodness have made. People who have shown themselves to be uncommonly altruistic universally had childhoods made secure by warm and nurturing parents, adults who, through their generous expression of love, help these individuals to feel positive about themselves and safe in the world. Dr. Erwin Staub of University of Massachusetts puts it this way: There is a pattern of child rearing that seems to encourage altruism in later years. A warm and nurturing relationship between parent and child is essential. And this too makes utter psychological sense to us, doesn't it? For surely it follows that if our parents pass on to us a strong sense of our own personal worth and dignity, that we will naturally be inclined to confirm and celebrate the human worth and dignity of others from that core of happy wholeness and health. Thus, we arrive at a truth for all adults that is as important as it is obvious. If we want our children and the next generation to act compassionately and respectfully toward one another, we must show them by living example of our thoughts, words, and deeds that they are loved and respected. The only way our young truly learn that human beings deserve to be treated gently and humanely is by receiving that decent treatment themselves. It seems obvious from these studies that if we are to have a better world where people are spontaneously treated with compassion and concern, we must first and foremost instill in our children an appropriate sense of their own self-worth, dignity, and value. But as Oliner and the other social scientists studying human goodness are quick to point out, a healthy sense of personal worth developed in childhood is not in and of itself a sufficient foundation for altruism and goodness. For they have concluded that the second common thread they discovered in those compassionate heroes of the Holocaust is just as indispensable as the first, namely that all these good people possessed a personal set of compassionate values which had been passed on to them by their parents. Dr. Staub concludes that while a warm and nurturing relationship between a parent and a child is essential for altruism, it nonetheless, and now I quote, must be coupled with compassionate values which provide the individual with the moral direction and strength to help others, even when it comes at great danger or cost to themselves. We are not talking about moralistic parents here who rant and rave for hours with their kids about what is right and wrong. We are talking about genuinely moral parents who by everyday example teach clear moral values and compassionate behavior. As Harvey Hornstein put it in his fascinating little book, Cruelty and Kindness, children who become humane adults do so, quote, because they once had opportunities to observe loving caretakers being concerned about the welfare of other human beings. They learn goodness quite simply by example, end quote. But I fear I've gotten ahead of myself in this discussion on the sources of human goodness, for I have not suggested just where the basic impulse to treat others compassionately comes from. I must ask, when all is said and done, what fundamental spiritual attitude of the human heart gives birth to goodness? I'm shifting from psychology to spirituality now. Well, I suppose there are any number of respectable answers for so vast and important a question, especially among the free-thinking Unitarian Universalists. But I personally most resonate to Harvey Hornstein's strikingly simple answer. He suggests that what makes for altruism and compassion in our world is people passionately feeling their fundamental connectedness with other human beings. We are good to those around us when we know deep down the centers of our trembling hearts that they belong beautifully and irretrievably to us as fellow human beings on this holy and tender planet Earth. Hornstein believes that human compassion and goodness are fundamentally given birth in our world through people who spiritually feel, and now I use his nomenclature, the bonds of we rather than the barriers of them. This hopeful human idea, which understands the importance of seeing human connectors rather than dividers, resonates beautifully with my understanding of the soul of our noble religion. For lying at the compassionate center of Unitarian Universalism is the astounding idea that every man, woman, and child on earth is a precious part of a family, the human family, of universal belonging and mutual responsibility. Our liberal faith has a vision of humanity's indissoluble oneness, and there is no avoiding it. If we take our Unitarian Universalism to heart, it is up to each one of us to treat every member of our family with just as much kindness, justice, and respect as we can. Some religions in this privatistic and selfish age say little more than, look out for good old number one. Work on your own personal salvation. Get yourself to heaven and never mind the rest of struggling humanity. Such religion, dominated as it is by the goal of personal salvation, is little more, in my view, than spiritual narcissism, a selfish path of the heart that refuses to hear the crying demands for goodness and justice that lie beyond the immediate little sphere of self and family. Many are tribal religions which cast the world into us versus them struggles. Sadly, in our time, many are the religions of individualism and isolism which free the believer from worldwide human responsibility. But ours, thank God, is a relational religion, a religion that would have us aware and alive to the irreducible oneness that exists between ourselves and human beings everywhere, a religion that calls us into close, caring, and compassionate communion with people of all kinds and colors, no matter how different from us they might at first seem. Ours is a faith that has always dreamt of people everywhere becoming like family, one humanity relating in ever more intricate patterns of compassion and respect. Unitarian Universalism is the demand to be gently and responsibly related to life and persons around you. And this church knows, with Hornstein and other global thinkers, that the genuine compassion for others is best and most beautifully born in the cockles of the human heart, which feels those indissoluble connections, the wondrous oneness. And we will only be genuinely good to one another when we know, by God, that every last human person with whom we share life on this planet is preciously a part of my family, my tribe, my country, me, by God, a part of me. There is a wonderful Hasidic tale told by Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, which I feel makes the reality and importance of our human connectedness with one another come to life. The story goes that a young man in Jerusalem wanted to visit Rome, which was the ruling capital of the Western civilization, a very strange and different place from Jewish Jerusalem. His mother protested, as worrying mothers are wont to do, and asked him, "How will you eat? Where will you sleep?" He didn't have any answers, yet he still wanted to go on his adventure to Rome. His mother finally relented and said, "I'm sure you will find food, but for sleep, you must take this pillow. At night, go outside the walls of Rome and put your head on this pillow, and you will have rest." The son did as she asked, and each night, after enjoying the sights, the sounds, the carnivals of Rome, he would leave that city and take his pillow and find sleep in the countryside. But one night, right before falling asleep, his pillow caught fire. Why? Because that night was the night the temple in Jerusalem burned. Wiesel goes on to explain that in his tradition, no member of the widely scattered Jewish community lives in isolation. On a very real mystical level, what happens to one Jew happens to all Jews, for they are spiritually and mystically bound together in one being, one indissoluble community. It was the precious bonds of human community and connectedness which set fire to the boy's pillow and kept him awake and alive to that which troubled his brothers and sisters back in Jerusalem. What I am saying to you is, as it was with the ancient tribe of Israel, so too now it must be with the worldwide tribe of humanity. The tribe to which we all so irrevocably and preciously belong. Surely all liberal religious thinkers realize how very rapidly our human world is shrinking. We now live in that global village Marshall McLuhan described, where all humanity is ever more intricately woven together as an interdependent web of life and being. The various peoples and nations of humanity can no longer afford to imagine themselves separated and distinct from one another. If we are to survive on this tiny blue-green spaceship, Earth, a new global consciousness of our interrelatedness must be quickly brought to birth, and humanity must begin learning how to live together as an interdependent family, with peace and understanding flowing into every corner of the globe. And that new consciousness of human connectedness and responsibility begins, don't you see, with human hearts able to see and celebrate the bonds of we, rather than brutalizing barriers of them. Now, please believe me, I have no illusions about how hard and long a battle it will be for this spiritual transformation toward genuine human oneness. We live, you and I, in terribly tribal times. It is with heavy heart that I realize that many of our world's leaders who currently dominate geopolitical affairs routinely think in parochial and tribal terms. Many are the archaic, inoperative worldviews which slice up the globe into isolated camps of we versus them. Warfare, terrorism, the arms race, famine, medical catastrophes like AIDS, and you can substitute COVID, are all allowed to prosper in the darkness of humanity's divisive and little thinking. This spring, and remember this was 2015, we witnessed one of the most heinous expressions of the evils of tribalism of the 20th century. I was at a Ramada Inn traveling, watching the evening news when the horrible images poured out of the television, and suddenly I found tears streaming down my face. There before me were the obscene newsreel pictures, you probably all saw it, of that Kurdish father and child dead at the doorsill, murdered by Iraqi poison gas that day. And you could see by the configuration of their bodies that the father had desperately tried to protect his daughter from this war crime that no nation had committed since World War II, but had failed. We must say to the Iraqis and Iranians and all others who would slaughter innocent human beings in such evil ways, no, it is not acceptable. It is not acceptable. It is not acceptable. We will not trade with you, have an embassy on your soil until you stop this heinous, evil behavior. Of all the many spiritual responsibilities that fall to us as Unitarian Universalists, none is more pressing than that of helping humanity to realize its holy interdependence, its indissoluble oneness. I want my religion, I want my Unitarian Universalist faith to call on me to ever enlarge the capacity of my heart, to challenge the world, to challenge me toward goodness and mercy, even when it comes at great personal cost. I want a faith which teaches my soul to organically feel the joy and sorrow of others, which reminds me of my inescapable responsibility to love and serve my far-flung, often difficult family. I want a church which refuses to let me morally and spiritually separate myself from the trials and tribulations of my global brothers and sisters, wherever and however I find them. I want a faith, if you will, that burns the pillow of my heart and keeps me awake wherever there is as much as one human being somewhere in need of my compassion or care. So may your pillow catch fire, dear Unitarian Universalist friends, When the evening news flashes into your living rooms and the images of starving, fly-covered Ethiopian children dying in their mother's arms, then may your pillow catch fire. May your pillow catch fire whenever some despairing bag lady spends another lonely night in some filthy, urine-soaked alleyway. Then may your pillow catch fire. May your pillow catch fire every time a young man with AIDS or COVID is dying alone in your neighborhood because nobody cares. Then may your pillow catch fire. May your pillow catch fire every time a minority child from the poor side of town is bitten on the face by a rat because this society doesn't care enough about people to provide adequate and humane housing. Then may your pillow catch fire. May your pillow catch fire every time one of your neighbors is sick or aggrieved and needs your simple healing of your holy touch. Then may your pillow catch fire. May your pillow catch fire every time there is some simple human kindness waiting for you, yes, you, no one else, you to bring to birth. May the pillows of your pulsating hearts evermore catch fire, for it is ever and always, as Universalist poet Carl Sandburg sang at the very end of his collected poems, there is only one horse on earth, and his name is all horses. There is only one bird in the air, and her name is all wings. There is only one fish in the sea, and the fish's name is all fins. There is only one man in the world, and his name is all men. There is only one woman in the world, and her name is all women. There is only one child in the world, and the child's name is all children. There is only one maker in the world, and that maker's children cover the earth, and they are named all God's children. That's us, dear friends. That is us.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Normally at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of the methods shown on the slideshow. Enlarge the slideshow tile to see how to do this. These methods will also be posted in the newsletter and on the UUCC website itself. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving by sending us an offering. Thank you. Our thanks for all the gifts given and received for the work of this community. Now let us sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
Please join in singing the closing hymn, Break Not the Circle, number 323.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Thank you, Jan, for leading that. Now let us recite the valediction. The flame of this chalice will no longer burn today, but the light of the flame within our hearts continues to shine brightly, illuminating the love felt in our community. After the benediction, please move your arrow to the top right of your screen and click the gallery view button. Oh, sorry, I have to do this first. Now, after the benediction, please move your arrow to the top right of your screen and click the gallery view button. Susan will now share the benediction.
When we know ourselves to be connected to all others, acting compassionately is simply the natural thing to do. R.N. Raymond.